All right, welcome back to ABA exam review and the continuation of our BCBA practice exam series, where we're going through another set of questions together and breaking them down. If you're new to the channel, welcome. If you're returning, welcome back. Please subscribe for all of our updates. Check out behavioranalyststudy.com for all of our study materials, including our combo pack. When you pass your exam, let us know so we can include you in the Sunday shout out. Work hard, study hard. Let's get going. A behavior analyst is working with the client to increase the frequency of hand washing behavior. The analyst implements a strategy where the client receives a sticker each time they wash their hands. After collecting enough stickers, the client can trade them in for a larger reward, such as extra playtime. Which concept is being demonstrated in this scenario? Now, this question wants us to identify a concept, and it's scenario based. So, like every question, we're going to attack the question and understand what we know so far. So far, we know this analyst is working to increase frequency of hand washing. They have a strategy where they're using essentially a token economy. The client gets a sticker, they get enough stickers, they trade them in for a larger reward. This looks like a pretty straightforward intervention we would use with any of our clients. So you could be thinking about a couple different things here. What concept are we using? Well, we're using reinforcement, we're using token economies. There's different ways to approach how you might answer this question. So we have a couple predictions. So now let's move to our answer choices. A is respondent conditioning. Now, respondent conditioning has to do with elicited behaviors, reflexes, and it isn't consequence based. So this is clearly not a respondent conditioning question because it's based on consequences such as reinforcement. Therefore, it's much more similar to operant conditioning because it is operant conditioning. When you're using consequences to change behavior and change future behavior, and behavior is dependent on consequences, you are looking at operant conditioning. And that's what's occurring in this scenario. What about habituation? Habituation is when a behavior or a reflex is repeatedly exposed to a stimulus and the stimulus starts to lose its power. You get habituated to that stimulus presentation, not what's occurring here. And then self-management. Well, we have an analyst working directly with the client, providing the tokens, providing the exchanges. So the client isn't managing themselves. This analyst is clearly working directly with that client to help manage the behavior. The concept being demonstrated here is operant conditioning. Pretty straightforward question. It's consequence-based behavior change. Therefore, we're looking at operant conditioning. You're working with the student to improve the frequency of completing homework assignments. Initially, the student receives a reward after completing every homework assignment. Over time, you change the schedule so that the student receives a reward after completing 3 assignments and eventually after completing 5 assignments. What type of reinforcement schedule are you using? Reinforcement schedule questions should be very straightforward. Now, we know we have basic schedules, so our 4 basic schedules are fixed ratios, variable ratios, fixed intervals, variable intervals, and you need to know your compound schedules. Compound schedules are just 2 or more basic schedules combined. And so if you have a reinforcement schedule question, you can ask yourself, is it a compound schedule question or is it basic? Well, in this case, we have this student. We're trying to improve frequency of homework assignments, and initially they're getting rewarded after every homework assignment. So it's like a continuous schedule, right? FR1. You then fade the schedule, and then the student receives a reward after 3 assignments. So you've changed to a fixed ratio 3. And then you go to 5 assignments, which is a fixed ratio 5. Every 5 assignments completed, every 5 responses, reinforcement is delivered. And so we've gone from a continuous fixed ratio to a fixed ratio 3 to a fixed ratio 5. We're not combining anything, so it's still a basic schedule question. And we've used a fixed ratio in every single scenario. And so now we've done all our work in the question. We pretty much know our answer. What type of schedule are we using? Are we using an interval schedule? We're not, because it's based on responses. How many assignments do they need to complete? It's not based on time, therefore it's not an interval schedule. So it has to be a ratio schedule. Is it fixed or is it variable? And be careful here, right? You are fading the schedule and you're changing the schedule, but the schedule is not variable. It starts with an FR1, it moves to an FR3, and then to an FR5. The student does not receive the reward based on an average. The amount is set and then it's faded. So be very careful you don't confuse variable with fading. What type of schedule are we using? Well, we're using fixed ratio schedules, and we're just fading the schedules out, or thinning the schedules, you could also say. Landon just learned his home address and phone number. Landon can tell this information to his technician and parents. His team mastered out this target and moved on to another goal. Yesterday, Landon's sister asked his address, and Landon could not answer. What did the team forget to do? This is a major mistake analysts often make, where we're so concerned with mastering targets and we're looking at data, and data show the client can do that skill in the clinic with one technician. What are we missing? What do we always need to check for before something is mastered? Well, it's one of our dimensions, generality. If we're not generalizing behavior, we're not doing our jobs. Generalization is everything. For instance, for Landon, home address, phone number looks like a safety skill, looks important. If Landon gets lost in a store, at the park, whatever it might be, he needs to give his home address, he needs to give his phone number. Landon has to be able to generalize that information. Right now, he can tell his technician and parents, but after mastering the target, his sister couldn't get the answer from Landon. That's a huge issue. What did the team forget to do? A, check for generalization. Yes, if they had gone to check for generalization and Landon's sister asked Landon this question and Landon couldn't answer, they would have never mastered out that target. You can't master the target just because the behavior happens in one setting with one person. That's not good enough. The team forgot to check for generalization. A looks like our answer, but we're always reading all of our answer choices. B, fade the prompts. Are we talking about prompts anywhere in this question? No, it's not a prompting question, so B is not our answer. C, you should not master safety skills. Well, that's not true either. Safety skills should typically have a higher criterion or a harder to master skill, right? Because we want it to be very ingrained because it's safety after all. But we can't go on teaching Landon safety skills forever. Eventually, something's going to have to master out and we will have to move on. But it needs to be generalized first. And then D, teach Landon every possible scenario he might need his address, since this is a safety skill. Now, that's just not reasonable, right? You can't teach Landon every scenario he might need his address. That's just not possible. You're not going to have the time. You're not going to have the resources. That's why checking for generalization is so important, because we want Landon to start generalizing on his own. As hard as we work, there's going to be scenarios we just can't teach. Generalization, again, one of our dimensions, arguably the most important piece for behavior change. If you're not generalizing, you're not being effective. What did the team forget to do? Check for generalization. You conduct a functional analysis for a potential target behavior. The analysis shows the behavior does sometimes seem to happen for attention and sometimes to gain access to toys, but the behavior also happens whenever the client is by themselves or already has toys and attention. What would you hypothesize is the function? Now, we have a functional analysis question here, and the functional analysis is the best way for us to try to pinpoint a function. And typically, if you have a functional analysis graph, you would like to see something like this, where some of the behaviors are at the bottom, and then you have one, what's clearly a reason, right? Let's say the top one's attention. That's not what's occurring here. What's occurring here is you have all your different lines all together. And so if you have something like attention and then tangible and then alone, you have all these lines crossing over. Now, what can we do in this situation? Well, typically when you see something like this, especially with the explanation where the client engages in this behavior, even by themselves or when they have everything, if you've done the functional analysis thoroughly enough, your first instinct is often going to be automatic, right? Because when that behavior happens all the time, even when they're by themselves, even when they have access to whatever they want, then the chances are the behavior might be happening for automatic reasons, right? So in this case, what would we hypothesize is the function? Well, you could say tangible, right? Because they do want to gain access to toys, but it also happens for attention, and it happens when they're alone or they have toys already. So it doesn't just happen for a tangible, right? It's happening at all these different times. There's a more specific way we could identify the function. What about escape? Well, escape is mentioned nowhere here, right? So escape is definitely out. Attention suffers from the same problem as tangible, okay, where it's happening for attention, but it also happens when attention is already there. And so, given our answer choices, automatic is going to be the best function. Now, do some behaviors have multiple functions? Of course. But on our exam, we need the best answer, and we can only choose one function. Therefore, the best answer is going to be automatic. It's happening at all these different times, even by themselves, even when they have toys, even when they have the attention. We would hypothesize the function is automatic. Rachel, a behavior analyst, has been assigned a new client named James. During her initial sessions, Rachel notices that James' parents often ask her for personal advice on how to handle various family issues that are not related to James' therapy. Rachel has an undergraduate degree in family counseling, but only a board certification and license in behavior analysis. How can Rachel remain ethical in these situations? This is a very important ethics question because, as the analyst, a lot of times families are going to grow to trust you and rely on you, and they're going to start asking you questions about things not in your scope. You always have to work within your scope, within your competence. And that means, are you licensed? Are you certified? You have to have some sort of credential to get there. In Rachel's case, she is a behavior analyst. She's board certified. She has her license, but the family is now asking her about issues that aren't related to James, the client's therapy. Now, Rachel has an undergraduate degree in family counseling, but does that qualify her to answer questions about those things during James's therapy time? It does not. Rachel needs to demonstrate some sort of competence. Rachel needs more qualifications than just that. Additionally, it's James's therapy time. It isn't family therapy time. And that's above all else the key. We can't use James's therapy time for parent therapy time. So how can Rachel remain ethical in these situations? A, offer the family advice on their issues, but only to the fullest extent of her undergraduate learning. Rachel should not do that. She should focus on James during James's time and stay within her competence. B, offer no advice or guidance on the family's issues. Now, careful here, right? This is potentially one route, okay? But what else could Rachel do? Because as the analyst, these things we know might be affecting James. So what can we do if we think or know that the family issues are possibly affecting James? We can ignore them, or we can offer advice on James's case and refer the family to outside resources for their issues. This is the best course of action to take. I can't help you here, but here are some resources I can give you to assist, because we know this is James' environment. We want that environment as productive and positive as possible. And then D, offer the family advice based on her own personal experiences and education. She should avoid that. That is not competence driven. That is not objective driven. What she wants to do, offer advice on James's case, and then refer the family to outside resources for their issues. If these family issues are related to James, absolutely that is relevant. If they're not, here are some resources that may be of help to you. Thank you for watching. Check out behavioranalyststudy.com for all of our study materials. Please subscribe for all of our updates. When you pass your exam, let us know so we can include you in the Sunday shout out. Work hard, study hard. See you soon.